You probably have a lot to say about all that paragraph, right? I mean,
Unfortunately, I don't, man.
all
uh,
I all I know is like I have 20 kids. I'm all right. We are we are live. I am excited to be here with my bro, Jay Hizzy. What's up, bro?
yeah, what's up, H-Town? So, it's cool, man. We're talking about kind of the beginning of all the nations today in
Hmm.
chapter 10. So I'm excited, man. It's definitely a unique kind of turning point in the book of Genesis where we are nearing the end of the first section. So the section 1 of Genesis, or there's two parts of Genesis. There's Genesis 1 through 11 that kind of you address all the origins of humanity.
Hmm.
And then you have after that, Genesis 12 and on is talking about the line of Abraham and kind of what God starts to do through them. So yeah,
I
we're
love
kind of
what you
approaching
said.
the end.
I love what you said there. Let me make sure that I heard you correctly. Genesis 1 through 11 is the creation of humanity and the continued procreation of humanity,
Yeah.
and post. So Genesis 1 through 11 is about that, and then Genesis 12 on is the line of Abraham.
Yeah, so it's just kind of what God. So Abraham is the beginning of the Hebrew people, and so God chose a covenant people to bring His Messiah through, and to really work as His mediator for the world, right? So, like you have in the Old Testament that God used the Jews to reach the world with His message, right, of salvation, and so here in the New Testament, God uses Christians to reach the world for him.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Great. Well, we're still on Noah, right? We started with Adam,
Yep.
then now we're
Yeah,
with one of Adam's descendants, Noah.
yep. So we're actually closing out. So kind of our big story time with Noah. We kind of had through chapter 6 through 9. So we're closing out with Noah today in the sense that we're kind of getting the lineage of all his sons. But something interesting is here. Chapter 10 and chapter 11 actually run parallel, so we need to remember that when talking about both chapters. So it's not like chapter 10 came chronologically before chapter 11. We need to understand them in an overlapping sense.
Got it.
Yeah, so and when we get into it, we'll address it, and then same thing when we get to chapter 11 episode, we'll address it again just to clarify.
Cool.
So
Sounds good.
yeah, so are we ready to start out, you think?
Yeah, Genesis 10. Do you want to start
All
us
right.
off?
We'll kick us off. All right. So Genesis 10, verse 1. Now these are the records of the generations of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, and Medea, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan were Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, Dodanim. From these, the coastlands of the nations were separated into their lands, every one according to his language, according to their families, into the nation. So, once again, this just to take a look at these first 5 verses. It says here at the end of verse 5, uh, everyone according to his language. So in the beginning, when God created humanity, we all had the same language. So this is why I'm saying that verses 10 and 11 run parallel, because verse 11 is where God separated the languages. So we're just kind of getting a lineage here of where everyone traces to, but the kind of the overlap story of why they have separate languages is what we're going to address in the next chapter. Um, so,
Interesting.
yeah.
One quick thing to point out here, really quickly. Noah has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And we're talking about the records of these generations, sons who were born to them after the flood. And then so we get Japheth here again. Then we see Gomer and several other sons. We see Gomer right here and Javan right here. Then we start talking about the sons of Gomer again. So these are the sons of Gomer. We have the sons of Javan. And as you mentioned, they're talking about the nations were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, and their families into their nations. I just find it interesting. It's, obviously not every single generation, not every single son, not every single grandson, not every single great grandson is really specifically mentioned. So it seems to highlight specific generations that they're going down here. And so these are some of them.
Definitely. So I would agree. This does not appear to be a closed genealogy. Like in the beginning, so in Genesis 5, that was a closed genealogy because they gave the age they were when they had that child, their first son, and then they gave the year they were, how old they were when they died, and all those things. So that was clearly a closed genealogy, right? And so this, you're right, is just trying to hit some high points of lineage.
Cool. Let's keep powering through. Verse 6, the sons of Ham were Cush and Mizraim and Put and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Seba and Havilah and Sapta and Raama and Sabteka. And the sons of Raama were Sheba and Dedan. Now Cush became the father of Nimrod. He became a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh and Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. That is the great city. Mizraim became the father of Ludum and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphuhim, and Pathrusim, and Casluhim, from which came the Philistines, and Caphtorim.
Yes, so this Nimrod cat is significant. So here's something interesting. When they're talking about just they're hitting this lineage, right? They're talking about the children that were born to different people and things like that. And then we stop and we have 4 verses that are addressing this guy Nimrod, right? He
Mm.
was a mighty one of the earth, mighty hunter before the Lord. It is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter, like like he's clearly a significant guy. So this part also overlaps with the next chapter, chapter 11, because it actually talks about in this one as well. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, right? So it appears that Nimrod was the one who led this construction of the Tower of Babel, and Shinar. It addresses Shinar in here at the end of verse 10. That actually appears to be Babylonia. So when we hear about Babylon, the place where the Jews were taken into captivity later on. This is actually the origins of that place. And then
Babel.
also,
So
yep.
Babel is the origin of Babylonia
So,
or
but
Babylon, I guess.
yeah, Babylon, because okay, so Shinar and Babylonia are the region, and then Babel, it's kind of, it just says here it's his kingdom, but Babylon the city, these appears to be the origins. And actually it appears that when we going to get into Abraham in verse 12, he actually came from that same region. But here it just like I've heard certain scholars say that what's going on here is that Nimrod is, he's almost like putting together a one world government. And I don't want to get too far into that because we're going to talk about that in chapter 11. But like I said, since these chapters overlap, I want to try to address what's relevant now without spilling into the next chapter. But the point is, Nimrod was a significant guy. He was kind of like an early, I don't know, just like a very significant world leader at this time. But it appears that he was kind of getting together with this, what he was, his kingdom was kind of, looks like it was like a based on idolatry and things like that. He actually, his name Nimrod actually means, I think, rebel in Hebrew, or it has some connection to the term rebel in Hebrew, I believe. So yep. And also it goes into, from that he went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh. So we also know that the Assyrians and the Ninevites, they were ancient enemies. So Babylon, Nineveh, like all these were ancient enemies with Israel. So he kind of set up these very powerful kingdoms. And the Ninevites, um, they actually they are credited with, I know that I've heard certain scholars say they're credited with coming up with some very unique ways of torture. They would do some terrible things just to people they would conquer, and just different people that they might capture. So yeah.
So Nimrod, mighty one on the earth, mighty hunter before the Lord. He starts to, looks like, builds these kingdoms. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Todd, and Calneh. And these appear to be cities within a specific region called Shinar.
Which is also Babylonia, correct?
Babylonia is a region, and
Yes,
Babylon is a city.
correct. Babylonia is a region east of Israel. It's actually, so the region would be modern day Iraq.
Hmm.
Or at least maybe not encompassing. Remember, they don't necessarily have the same geographic boundaries that we do. But that's to give you an idea. Like I do know that Babylon, the ruins of Babylon, are in Iraq today. But they're just ruins. The city doesn't still exist that anyone's populated in.
Got it. I'm just going to pull up a quick map here. That map.
Do it.
Here we go. Because here we get into Nimrod, land of Shinar. But you're right. This is east of Israel. I do want to pull up two quick maps here. Yeah, modern day Iraq, Syria, right there. So, we got Nimrod's kingdom on the screen right here. And it's clearly east of the Mediterranean Sea. Babylonia, land of Shinar. Looks like it's kind of running along the Mediterranean and the Tigris River.
Tigres.
Tigris, that's what I'm thinking too. So yeah, So yeah, I definitely do see this really running along. The Tower of Babel seems to be right where Baghdad is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right in that region. Maybe not. Yeah, in this region, in this entire region right here. You look at
Wow.
this. You look at this, and we see these lines right here. We see here, right here, and then we see these lines right here, right? And we have land of Syria. You have Babylon right here, Babylonia, as you mentioned. Nineveh up here. The land of Shinar, Nimrod's kingdom, Mediterranean Sea, and we got the Persian Gulf over here. Anyways, I just wanted to take a look at that really quickly. I
No,
find
it is
this,
interesting. It helps. I mean, it's relevant geography because this is what we're talking about where the nations, where the origins of nations, the languages, the cultures, how people spread out. Yeah, it's relevant, man.
yeah. So from the land, he went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh, which he went from Shinar, the land of Shinar, which is where Babel is. Then he went up to Assyria.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see Nineveh up there. It said he went forth into Assyria, but really it looks like he went north according to this map we have. And obviously the accuracy of the map that I just looked up, I literally just looked this up off the internet. So
But I mean, all this seems right to me though, based on what I've been learning. I mean, you have Babylonia, Shinar, east of Israel. Then you have Assyria in the north, Nineveh in the north. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah,
yeah, and if we're wrong, someone will call us out.
exactly. Yeah,
He
yeah.
he went forth into Assyria and built Nineveh and Rehoboth-ur and Calah, Rezin, and between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. Raisin, it mentions Rezin, the great city, it looks like. This guy's like a little Napoleon, is what I'm getting at
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I kind of think of like he's an early Alexander the Great, right? Just going around creating all these things, except that like he didn't really conquer anything. I don't think of him as like this early conqueror of different nations. I mean, the nations, because the nations haven't really started in a sense yet. He just went around kind of gathering and getting people together and uh, trying to put together this evil one world government.
Got it. So then we have here, kind of in verse 13, it says, Mizraim became the father of Ludum and several of these other people, from which came the Philistines and Casluhim. So got some Philistines in here.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're going to be. I mean, this addresses ancient enemies of Israel. So yeah, the Philistines. We're going to read about like in the books of First and Second Samuel address a lot of wars with the Philistines.
And I think if you were I suspect that if you were alive around this time in which Moses wrote this book, that you would recognize some of these people, some of these places, some of them, maybe not all of them, some of them now, because political boundaries change over time, the names of cities change over time, that you'll not be able to find all these places necessarily on a map. Governments come, they fall. They come, they rise, they fall.
Bada bing, bada boom.
They come, they rise, they fall. And I suspect till Jesus comes, they're just going to keep rising and keep falling.
Yep, you said
So,
it.
cool.
Yeah. Wait,
You
I'll
want to
pick
move
back
on to
up at verse.
15?
Yeah, let's do it. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zamarite, and the Hamathite, and afterward the families of the Canaanite were spread abroad. The territory of the Canaanite extended from Sidon as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, as you go toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, by their lands, by their nations. So we just talked about how the Philistines, we read about them in 1st and 2nd Samuel. All of these different ones, the Jebusites, the Amorite, the Girgashite, a lot of these are covered in the book of Joshua. And we see, I mean, these are the people who possessed the land of Canaan, who were doing evil things like doing child sacrifices and things like that. And so God gave the land of Canaan to the Israelite people. And so at first, I mean, he was like, "Hey, I'm giving the land to you, go in and take it." But because of their lack of faith at times, and because of their lack of obedience to take the land as quickly as they should have and obediently as they should have, they had to deal with some of these ancient wars. And I believe, though, yeah, I mean, we're just, the point is that these people groups, the names of these people that we're reading right now, this is going to show back up.
Right. And it's easy to jump through one of these paragraphs and your head just starts spinning. Especially if this is your first time going through the Bible. Some of these people groups come up later in the Bible, just like Justin mentioned. And I think it's also important to remember that when we talk about the Canaanites, that's a large people group. You know, that's a just imagine the city that you live in or the neighborhood you live in right now. This is hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more people group that lived. These people lived and they were historic. They obviously are recorded in history here. And so while it's easy to quickly move through these entire people groups, it's important to remember that each one of these people groups had their own culture. They had their own traditions. They had their own practices. They had their own famous athletes, you know, in the form of soldiers. They had their they had their own famous musicians like Justin Bieber or something like that, you know. They had their own famous uh, food restaurants that they would all go to. So these favorite foods. I mean, this is an entire culture that we're talking about. Not only that, it's not just the culture, really, the culture and some of the things that I mentioned here, but it's also the sins of the culture, which I think is what you're mentioning here. You got a land of people that are uh, living in a way that is not loving their neighbor. You know, it can be a very corrupt place. Places around the world today that they don't love their neighbor very well, and there's a
It's
lot
true.
of people taken advantage of, a lot of victims, a lot of children that are abused, and
Yeah.
a lot of adults and women and all types of things happening right now in the world today, which you would take a look in that area and just feel like there's a lot of debauchery, you know,
Violence, oppression, all those things, man. Yeah.
right. So um, I think we can think of some governments around the world, or maybe the people in the country are starving and they don't treat the people very well, and a lot of people are taken advantage of, psychologically abused, and so there's just a lot of interesting things about each one of these names, each one of these people groups that we're quickly going through. But let's make sure we take a step back and not maybe minimize these people groups too much, because they were a lot of people. So,
Yep.
and the way I like to think about it, just to kind of summarize, I grew up in a small town, and whenever you grow up in a smaller town, you have kind of like the people in that town that are kind of famous. Maybe you have that famous football player that everybody knows about. or that famous business person in the city. And I know that, and all the people that grew up in that area likely know who those people are. But nobody else in the world knows or even cares, you know. But I don't know. I find that fascinating going to some of these random cities and kind of finding out their culture and what's really important to them. So, anyways, any other thoughts on this paragraph?
Nope. I mean, I think you covered it.
Oh,
There's a variety of cultures and languages going on there. Yeah.
verse 21. Okay, this is Deion Sanders' jersey number. I don't recommend living like he did in the first half of his life, but I think he became a pastor in the second half of his life. That's the one that I'm referencing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Verse 21, also to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, and the older brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem were Elam and Asher, Asher,
Asher is
and Asher,
Asher is how I've heard it pronounced.
and Arpachshad, and Lud, and Aram. Sons of Aram were Uz, and Hol, and Gether, and Mash. This is where mashed potatoes comes from.
Probably.
Dude, that would be epic to be named after a guy named
Yeah.
like you're the I think we all
You're the
enjoy mashed.
guy. Yeah, I mean, you're the guy that when I'm eating mashed potatoes, I'm thinking of you.
Like I'm Mash.
Yeah.
First name Mash, last name Potatoes. So verse 24, Arpachshad became the father of Shelah. Shelah became the father of Eber. By the way, real quick, whoever got named Sheila as a man probably wasn't the coolest guy in his town. Back to that.
Well, maybe it was one of those deals like that song "A Boy Named Sue." His dad knew he wasn't going to be around, so you name him a girl's name. He gets beat up a lot when he's younger. He's tougher when he's older.
Yeah. No, I don't know if the people watching this are old enough to know what you're talking about, but they can look it up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not old enough for when that song came out, but I've heard of it. So
Right. Me neither. Me neither. Verse 25. Two sons were born to Eber, and the name of one was Peleg. For in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Olmadad, and Sheleph, and Hazar Maveth, and Jura, and Hadoram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Obal, and Abimael, and Shiva, and Ophir, and Avila, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan.
that was a mouthful.
Whoa. Okay. Now, their settlement extended from Mesha as you go toward Zephar, the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, by their lands, according to their nations.
You said a lot.
You probably have a lot to say about all that paragraph, right? I mean,
Unfortunately I don't, man.
all
uh,
I all I know is like I have 20 kids. I'm gonna name them every single thing in here.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you know how confusing all this is?
yeah. Oh
Why
man.
can't they just have normal names like Justin and Henry?
Actually, for when they were born, those probably were normal names in their
I know, I'm just
time and
kidding.
culture. No, I like it though.
I
I
mean,
like it
depending
a
where
lot.
we are in the country, everyone's like never even heard of our names, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Justin, I'm sure they've heard of Justin though before, just because you have so many four celebrity brothers with
I
the same
guess
name.
so.
I won't bring those up right now. According to their languages, by their lands, according to their nations. So there's just a billion people listed off here. Um, you know what? I'm gonna recommend that if you want to do additional research on this paragraph, you can go to Dr. Constable's website, www.drconstableswebsite.com. JK, planobiblechapel.org/constable-notes/ here they are. You can dig into Genesis. You can read about every single one of these people having trouble sleeping. This is what you're going to want to read. Actually, I'm sure it's fascinating. I'm kind of giving it a hard time a little bit right now, but I'm sure it's quite fascinating.
It is. I've heard certain scholars talk about how they can pinpoint a lot of like modern day cultures and the origins and things like that, just from the detailed record the Bible gave, right? And just how we do see the origins and where these things started and how they developed.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. There's a lot of things in the Bible because it's a historical record that initially we wouldn't be particularly fascinated maybe ourselves just because we don't have the background. For those of y'all who play like first person shooters and you want the perfect sensitivity, well, that's what we're talking about right here. It's getting into the nitty gritty, the details. So
Be detail oriented guys.
yeah, it's like changing the sensitivity, inverting your joystick, inverting your right controller joystick so that up is down and down is up. So imagine imagine if you were a scholar in here and you're actually really studying and you're doing archaeology. then 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 this is like Christmas Day reading this chapter, reading this paragraph.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's finish this out strong. Verse 32. Take us home, Justin.
These are the families of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, by their nations, and out of these, the nations were separated on the earth after the flood. Well, once again, I want to say the nations were not separated until chapter 11 when God separated them by changing their language. But I don't want to hop ahead. But just again, to repeat for like the third or fourth time, chapters 10 and 11 run parallel. And so
That's
we'll be
important.
referring. It
It's
is.
important that you say that because if you're reading this and then you read the next section, you're going to be a little bit confused. What do you mean
Yeah.
by these sections run parallel? What does that actually mean?
Right. So it means that the chronologies, it means that God is describing, or sorry, God through Moses is describing in chapter 10 details of if we had a timeline, right? So if this, and so let's just say right now, let's just round it off to 3000 BC exactly. So both of these things are happening in 3000 BC, but it's like chapter 11 is like the details of an event that caused the separation of all the different cultures and peoples in chapter 10. So they're both happening at the same time, and so the Moses just chose to put chapter 10 before chapter 11, because he already had started with the genealogies and the people and just talking about, introducing the sons of Noah, and just it was obviously relevant. But yeah,
So
so that's why
the timelines are parallel.
the timelines are parallel.
So
Yes.
chapter 10 is talking about a timeline of things that happen. When we get to chapter 11, it's not like, okay, 10's done and then here starts 11. It's like 10's up here and then 11's right here. Then they actually work through a timeline together.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going to talk, and I mean, I think it'll be more clear after we get finished talking about chapter 11, so yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. But I definitely agree that this is a good Really great ending. I love your analysis. Really good.
Well, I feel like all I did was talk about Nimrod, but you
No,
know.
no, really good analysis. I'm super impressed. I know our audience is is impressed. Throw some comments in the put some comments below on what level of impressiveness you have with Justin. 10 is the general maximum, but you feel free to go above 10 if you think that he just really blew it out of the water in this episode. Um, these are the families of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies by their nations. The flood's over with. The flood's done. Everybody just died except for Noah and his family. And now the world is being repopulated
Yep.
through Noah and his sons. So that's what we're getting into. I mean, we're starting from scratch here.
Yep.
God literally started from scratch.
We started over with just a select few.
The cookies were burnt.
Yep.
Threw those cookies away in a very godly manner, mind you, in a very loving but
Righteous manner.
righteous manner. That's
Yep.
thank you. Very loving, very righteous. The cookies got burnt. That
Yep.
happens sometimes. God knew they were going to get burnt, but he wanted the cookies to decide on their own if they wanted to get burnt or not. He
Yep.
threw those cookies away, and now we got a fresh batch in the oven. Okay. Now, when cookies want to get burnt, and then you put them, you give cookies free will, the choice to do things. You know,
You just stay in the oven too long.
the cookies are cookies. Cookies are cookies.
And sometimes cookies make bad choices.
If anything's true, cookies are cookies. Okay, that's all.
Amen.
Amen, amen. So, yeah, Justin, thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
No, no,
No,
no. Thank you.
no, dude. Thank you for that cookie analogy.
You know
Thank
what?
you for the cookie illustration, man. I love cookies
Yeah,
and I love the Bible and I love how you just brought them together.
yeah. We did. We
No, here's
we
the thing. Yes, I love the Bible before I love cookies, but I'm just saying it was, yeah,
they're joined.
there's
Joined.
you joined them.
First off, dude, you're the baker. I'm like the cookie sheet, okay? Getting back to our cookie analogy. This is really going well, by the way. This is where the analogy gets really good. Let's really power through on this one and finish this one out. JK, let's end that before it gets more terrible than it already was. But bottom line is, thank you.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you, sir. So
Yeah, guys, this was a fun episode. It was good. And I just think it's I think it's another connection. I think it's cool. Like, Nimrod was highlighted, and so that's why I think it was so highlighted, because his actions and what he did is what's going to be addressed by God in the next chapter.
right.
So, and I mean, honestly, man, this can so easily be missed. Like, before I started studying the Bible, when I read through these things, it's like I didn't know anything about Nimrod, and that his actions were what led to the Tower of Babel, and just kind of, I'm excited to talk about the Tower of Babel tomorrow and what it really means, and,
Yeah.
and that like I grew up. I don't know how I heard the stories I heard growing up, but those stories were not correct,
Mm.
of what the Tower of Babel. And I'm
You
not
were
saying
you were
everyone heard.
misled by the church?
I was misled. I don't remember who I was misled by, but I was misled in what the Tower of Babel meant.
Wow.
Yeah, or
Never,
that story.
that's sad. I've never heard of that happening before. Um,
Yep.
you might
Very
want
much
to
like
let the world church president know that there's this one church in town that's not leading people
not
correctly.
teaching the Tower of Babel.
That's
So,
true.
yep.
That's true. No, I definitely do think that people are just not as smart as us. I really think that's what happens sometimes, and we should be we should feel sorry
Hey, some cookies are smart, some aren't.
Oh, totally just kidding, by the way. We're a couple of knuckleheads, okay?
Yeah,
I'm actually
we're half burnt cookies.
it's true.
If the
I'm
illustration can go that way.
I'm literally the only function I serve here is just the guy with the computer. If you if you want to know where the brains and the brawn come from, brawn is just another word for handsomeness. That's literally this guy right over here.
No, am I pointing the right way?
I hope so. I think you are, dude.
No.
This guy
Oh
right
yeah.
here.
Here's the thing. Henry brings swagger, and I remember that. Here's the thing. There was this one time, me and Henry were in a wedding together, and
Mm,
they were introducing us into they were introducing the bridal party into the reception,
mm.
and I'm the guy that had to walk behind Henry, and Henry had too much swagger. I just couldn't. It was like after they introduced Henry, to have to walk in behind him. That was a bummer, man.
You know, I'm sure they just edited the part of the video out where I'm walking, and they probably just got your part. So,
No, no, but
um,
I don't know what they did, but everyone in the room saw you.
you know, I just I don't notice these things. I just walk, and
Yeah.
if I walk funny, then little known fact, I'm a funny walker. So, just we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of strengths. This guy got a double dose of the strengths.
No.
I
Uh,
got the short. Be the short stick. As a little baby.
but you're
But,
taller than me.
That's irrelevant to this. We're both sitting down right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
height has anything to do with this.
Amen.
Okay. Well, thank you. Seriously. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bros, I just want to tell everybody have a brotastic bro day, and we'll both bro you later. This goes all out to the bros, brosophines, which are the lady bros.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So bro out.
Bro out.
Bro out everybody. Bro out.